And one of the things I remember that Katia said to me a long time ago, I remember her talking about my dream is to work within a global leadership school. I want to create that. So over the years, our stories, and that sort of dream sort of expanded, or that vision expanded. And one year we were in Stanley Park collaborating on a program, and we were standing outside, and Katia said to me, I just have a feeling that someday I'm coming back to the West Coast out here because of the trees. Something about the trees pulls me. And I remember them, and I think that was like 18 years ago, Katia, when that happened. And I kind of, that went in and out of my mind, and Katia's life went on, and a really amazing story that I'll let her share with you. But at one point she was in Stanford, and she's like, come down here and come into my class. And, it was just so cool what she was offering the students, because they're in a very, in a big institution, and it's like there are other worldviews and ways to think. And I saw that with Katia bringing people in and bringing people in, and I thought, wow, what a beautiful gift that she has the ability and the community to bring so many different speakers in to expose her students to a lot of different things. And then a couple of summers ago, there was a shuffle happening at Hollyhock, and I was standing down on the beach, and I looked up and I saw the trees, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is where she needs to be. I just knew, I felt it, saw it. These are the trees that she talked about 18 years ago, which is kind of weird because why would you remember that? And then I'm telling this part. I don't know if I should tell. I'm telling this part because I think it's funny. The magic part of this is, and I kind of, that's really important, is the spiritual lineup of this part is when they hired the headhunters. I don't know, that's not the right term. What do you call the people? You know what I'm talking about, the people when they hired, and they phoned me, and I said, oh, you don't need to interview anybody else. This is the person I know that's for the job. Don't waste the time or the money. And they laughed and said, no, no, that's not how it works. We have other people that we're interviewing. And I was like, I don't know why you're doing that. And soon enough, Katia called me and she said, what have you done? I'm like, what have you done? She said, I'm in the top two. And I'm like, oh, well, of course you are, of course you are. And then it went through, and I love that Katia, when they said, we would like to work with you, Katia said, oh, hang on a second. And which I loved that she paused and wasn't like, yes, she paused, and she went out to fast and sat and prayed, and it was like the yes came from the land. And to me, in the time that we're in right now, we're in a time of like a lot of uncertainty and a lot of upheaval, and there's it makes a place like Hollyhock even more important, that we are connected to the land and listening to, that which is greater than us. And so I'm so thrilled that Hollyhock community has gotten Katia, because I'm like, we're in for a real treat of a person who has the integrity and the determination and the vision to be able to, take this into a new era, and especially during this time. And Katia comes with a wealth of just not just knowledge, but people and connections, and I'm super excited to see what's going to happen. And so before I keep on continuing on talking, but I just know that her arrival here was through spirit and is magic, and she's incredible human that I call sister, Katia.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very humbling to follow that. And it's amazing because so Kim told that the sparkles were the first thing that she remembered, but I was 24. It was my first job out of college, really, and was working at this Indigenous youth leadership organization, it was the most amazing, like first job. I got to spend time on the land and connecting with elders and being in ceremony. And when I started the job, Kim was actually in Guyana at the time, and she was leading a trip with a bunch of youth. And, so technically she was one of my staff as part of the program that I was responsible for running. And I can just remember, Kim, I don't know if you remember this, but my very first meeting with you, you like pulled me into a little side room next to the offices area. And I just remember Kim looking across the table from me. And if you know Kim, you'll get this. And just saying, you need to realize one thing, you're not the boss. Do you remember that? And I was so scared of you. I was so scared. But it was very humbling. You put me right in my place. And I think it's a really profound message, if we go deeper, which is, something that I have learned over and over and over again, is that not only am I not the boss, I am fully, like, my commitment is to be fully in service to listening for what wants to come through me, And so I'm going to share a little bit of my story today, but I want to share that, because Kim was talking about the trees, that when I first interviewed for Hollyhock, and I did the first interview, and I had never heard of Hollyhock before. I had never heard of Cortes Island. It was all new to me. And so I did the first interview, and afterwards I was like, I really need to get a sense for the land. And I remember going outside and I just did a bit of a visualization, and I sent my spirit to Cortes. And the first thing that happened was that I was immediately in front of the big trees. And I was basically like on my knees, and my head was just pushed to the ground. And it was this feeling of deep, deep, deep reverence, devotion, servitude. Like, I am in service to what this land is calling for. So I just want to start with that. That's like whatever it is that called me to Hollyhock, I believe is truly the same thing that has called generations and generations of people to Hollyhock. And so part of why I wanted to come on and tell my story and share a little bit about who I am and also just what brought me to Hollyhock is because when I was first interviewing, I was scouring the website, I was reading everything I could about Hollyhock because I didn't know anything about it. And I happened upon this talk that was this intergenerational transfer panel. And so you had Siobhan Robinson and Rex Weiler on it, and you had Dana and Joel, and you had Peter. And Rex and Siobhan told the story of how they first found Hollyhock. And so that magical story of the folk festival and the gypsy fortune teller and the ring and the hollyhocks. And really there was a part about Rex also listening to the trees and hearing a message from the trees. And so part of the impetus for telling my story is because I think these storylines matter. And there has been a lot of synchronicity that's brought me into this story, and also like magical wild things that I couldn't control. And so one of the things that I've learned over time is that when something is like it's not what I had in my mind, then I actually trust it more, and I know that it's like so much better than I could have designed. So as Kim said, when we met, I was in my early 20s. I was working at this Indigenous youth leadership organization, and I had this vision. And I can remember because the work I was doing was so beautiful, and I was really being initiated into this way of relating with the land and this remembrance. The organization was called Rediscovery, and it was founded originally in Haida Gwaii by Haida elders who they realized that the reason that their Native youth were struggling was because they themselves, the First Nations youth, were not having a chance to be on the land, to connect with their own culture, to connect with their own ceremonies, to connect with elders. And so they created this program called Rediscovery that invited the youth back into those practices. And from the very beginning, Rediscovery was always an inclusive program because they realized that part of the separation had happened because of these white logging families that came to Haida Gwaii. And so from the very beginning, Rediscovery also included some of those children of the white logging families they were in the canoe together, they were camping together, they were on the land together. So there was this beautiful aspect of really also welcoming in other people. And so for me, as a very young program coordinator, I also got to go. I got to be in my first Sweat Lodge experience. I got to be on the land. I got to take a a van of 12 Indigenous youth from 12 different backgrounds, 6 of them from Canadian First Nations and 6 of them from around the world, from Guyana, Bolivia, Thailand, New Zealand. And we drove through Alberta and British Columbia. And that was my first time visiting BC. And I can remember just thinking, I'm going to live here one day. And participating in ceremonies and sitting with elders and getting to visit schools and have intercultural dialogue and also praying together and listening to the land together. So that experience, there was something in that seed that I think is really important as I feel into the future of Hollyhock. And it was also the seed of a vision for me that it was like I wanted to help create some kind of a center. I think I thought it was a university at the time. It was going to be a global transformative leadership and learning university. But the intention was, how do we help people remember who we are, what our right relationship is with the land and with one another at this time of great importance on the planet, at this time, as Joanna Macy calls it, of the Great Turning. So I was getting ready to leave that job. And I was pregnant with my first son, Jalen, who was born in 2005. And I can remember this moment of being at my desk and writing down like transformative leadership and learning university. I can like see the paper on my desk. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to start a university, I should probably get my PhD. So once I'd had Jalen and he was a year old, I spent my like first year of Jalen's life him like nursing while I was doing the GRE and I was applying to universities and traveling to visit different places. And I started my doctorate when he was a year old. And, initially I was, really looking at First Nations communities and I was being asked to teach around Indigenous education and, because of my experience, which was really beautiful. And at some point I felt like as a non-First Nations person, that wasn't my seat, like that wasn't mine to do. And so I redirected and I thought, really like, how do we help here in North America where there is so much locus of power, of decision-making, money, resources? How do we help people who have access to all of that to have the kinds of personal transformation and transformative experiences and remembrance with the land that will help them to reconnect and to then use their own life force in service to this great turning. And so I met Joanna Macy. I was like considering, where do I do my PhD research? I decided at the time I was living in Ontario and I really wanted to move back to California, which is where I'd gone to university. So I went to the Bioneers Conference, kind of looking for an excuse to move to California. And it's just, I want to name these things because there's like song lines that go through all of them, So at that Bioneers, I met Joanna Macy and I met Lynn Twist. I thought I would maybe do my research with Lynn and the Pachamama Alliance. Lynn sent me to this other workshop where I ended up meeting my current husband, Christopher, who told me about his program, The Ecology of Leadership. But it was Lynn Twist's fault that Christopher and I met. We wouldn't have met without her, and I wouldn't have discovered the whole Ecology of Leadership body of work. And I know that Lynn is very close with Victoria Watson, who is a long time Hollyhock community member. So there are many of these, when I look back over time, lines that bring me to Hollyhock, even though I'd never heard of Hollyhock before. It's like the whole time, the web was like seeding around Hollyhock in my life. So fast forward, I ended up co-directing that program, The Ecology of Leadership, with my husband, Christopher, and with James Stark, who was my mentor, who just passed away this year. And we were teaching that program. It was helping people to remember their connection with the land, with community, with the earth. It was really, really beautiful. But I kept coming back to like, but there's a greater vision, like, because that was at a regenerative design permaculture institute, but we weren't actually like really living there, stewarding the work in a bigger way. And I kept feeling like every time I would sit with my vision, I was like, there's a bigger story, there's a bigger place. Like this is meant to reach tens of thousands of people, not just like 100 people deeply that I was impacting every year. And so we decided to pause the Ecology of Leadership program. I taught it for a decade, and this was 2020. So I'll just say that the very last weekend in person, it was a 6-month in-person program where one weekend a month people would come in person. the very last weekend of the very last 6-month program of 24 cycles of that program was February 2020. So we had planned a threshold ceremony to transition that program. And I went to the Wisdom 2.0 conference. I'll name this too because at the Wisdom 2.0 conference, I met Tammy Simon, who is also deeply connected. She has a home on Cortes and is a longtime supporter of Hollyhock. And I met her at Wisdom 2.0 and I was like, I'm supposed to connect with you. I'm supposed to do something with you. And I went up to her and I was like, I think we're supposed to do something together. And I think she was very nice and was like, that's nice. Like, I have no idea who you are, but we had a one-on-one call and I think she was like, I'm not really sure what to do with you, but she was very kind. And so when I met her this year, I was like, do you remember me? And she's like, oh yeah, of course. And so like, again, all of these people connect back to Hollyhock. Um, but I thought that the way to start creating the center was to do my business degree. So I radically, very strangely, decided to go back to do a business degree, which was quite honestly a terrible decision from the perspective of like what, I didn't really learn anything from the business degree, honestly, but it's like one of the things that led to me then teaching at Stanford because I was at Stanford for the business school program and I was like, I got to do something that feels more purpose oriented, like help me find something outside of the business school. And I managed to find these people doing something called the Stanford Flourishing Project. And that was like asking, how do we remember? And it was asking like teaching classes on deep nature connection and on living with purpose. And I was like, okay, great, plug me in here. So I got to start teaching classes, which was where I designed and taught a class called Living Leadership that I brought Kim down for because it was centering indigenous and ecological ways of knowing. And so Kim came down and I think we talked about, right? Like that it was like, okay, it's getting to be time to leave the Bay Area. And at the same time, at that Wisdom 2.0 conference, which was March 2020, I got COVID. We all got COVID in the very, very first wave of it. And at that time, like, we got quite sick. So I ended up with long COVID. And so I was doing all of these things the last 5 years. I was teaching at Stanford. I was running my own leadership programs. I was coaching. I was trying to raise 3 children while having long COVID and quite sick. And every time I would go into ceremony, I would get this message that was like, you have to stop. And I resisted it radically. I was like, I can keep going. I can keep doing this. I can, I need to be of service. But the messages got louder and louder. And I was starting to be ready to surrender, I will say. Like I don't let go easily. I don't know how you are, but it took a lot of messages. And so I had a very strong message on my birthday, 2023, which is July 7th. I was born 7/7/77. And so I was in a ceremony and I heard this message about going into the cave. And I was like, okay, I'm hearing you. So one by one over the course of the year from July 2023 till the next summer, I dropped things. So I literally had like 6 different jobs. So I let go of this program, the Dalai Lama Fellows that I was an assistant director for. I let go of a coaching program I was leading. I let go of my retreats. I like one by one was releasing things, but I was still holding on. So I was like, I can just teach one class at Stanford. And that's when I will say, my ancestors maybe got upset with me. A girlfriend called me and she said, okay, there's some kind of grandmother and she's getting mad. Like she's now angry. They have things for you to do and you're not listening. And I was like, yeah. Like I'm working on it. I'm getting there, but I still was planning to teach. This is last summer, July 2024. I was teaching this class. And these are beautiful classes, wild wonder, deep nature connection for cultivating well-being. So I was like, how bad can it be to just keep doing this? But what happened is I got COVID 2 more times last summer. And the first time I was like, okay. And then the second time in August 2024, it was the final straw. So I was like, okay, take me. I surrender. I called my boss at Stanford. I said, I'm sorry, I have to do a full stop, full sabbatical, 6 months, let go of everything. And it was really beautiful because she responded in such a kind way. And she said, I fully support you. Your worth is not connected to your productivity. And there was something deep in that that I hadn't really believed was true of me, but I decided, okay, I'm going to let it all go. So I let it all go. I started my sabbatical September 1st. I had three intentions for my sabbatical. One was to heal, just rest, not be working, be taking care of my body as much as I could while still being a parent to three children. Number two was there was a book that I was supposed to write. And I started writing it, but that's the thing that it's still on the table because of what happened next. Because the third was to listen for where is the land-based leadership center. I literally was visiting places. I was like going to different places. I thought it had to be by a river, which is its own story. I'll make that connection. But I went to Colorado. I went to New Mexico. I went to Bend, Oregon. I went to New England, where I grew up. I went to Asheville. I was like visiting. I was like, are you my home? Are you my home? Are you my land? Are you my river? And they were all like, yeah, we're beautiful. Sure, you could pick us, but like not it. And so I was still listening. And the second question was, who am I supposed to do this with? So I was like, where are my collaborators? It wasn't my Stanford Business School colleagues as much as I had hoped maybe it would be. It wasn't my community in California as much as I had hoped it would be. But the whole time, I just thought I had to do it myself from scratch. So I was like, okay, I got to find the land. I got to buy the land. I got to build the thing from scratch. We're going to start there. So this is all you could find the intentions online that I wrote. This was all in place before September 1st. September 1st, I start the sabbatical. September 5th, they gave me 5 days to rest. I get a text from Kim. And she was just like, hey, Hollyhock's looking for a new CEO. And I'm like, what's Hollyhock? And I think I just responded. I said, that's cool. Are you going to apply? And Kim, if you've ever texted with Kim, you know that she's very essential in her text. And she just responded, no, you. And I was like, okay, I hear you. But I was like, I just started a sabbatical. No, thank you. Like I'm not looking for a job. I just gave up all my jobs. It took me a really long time to get rid of all my jobs. I had a trip planned to New Mexico, to where I was born. I was going to go on this like whole ancestral pilgrimage to write this book, which was, about the healing of the mother wound and our connection with the earth. And so I did that. I went to New Mexico last September. I did a 10-day pilgrimage to my birthplace. And I can remember I came back and I had this message on LinkedIn that must be from the executive search committee that you talked to, Kim. And it was like, hi, Hollyhock's looking for a new CEO. Are you interested? And I was like, let me check it out. And I can just remember going onto the website and just reading that story of the origins and feeling, it was like a feeling of immediate recognition, is what I will say. It felt like I could have written the website. It felt like, it felt like everything I had been doing. So the entire model of the ecology of leadership I'd been teaching was about the connection between the inner and the outer. So healing, like doing the inner healing work, doing the deep root work, doing the ancestral healing work, clearing out our vessel to become as clear a channel for love to move through us so that our leadership in the world could be coming from that place, so that whatever we create in the world can be coming from a place of love, of truth, of integrity, of connection, of remembrance. And as I read the Hollyhock website and I heard the stories of the innies and the outies and that initial coming together, I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I've been doing. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't have to create this thing from scratch. Maybe actually, like this incredible, amazing place that is already in existence, already has incredible programming happening, already has an incredible community. Like, what if I got to just come be part of it? So I was like, all right, I will play. I'll do an interview. And I can remember like getting dressed for my first interview and I like put on one of my like business school shirts, like with the buttons and like things that I'd bought thinking I needed to wear them for business school, in which I felt so disembodied and weird. And I can remember putting it on for my first interview and then being like, ew, no, like I don't know. Like I only want to take this job if they want me. Like only if it's like I'm going to be as much myself as I can be myself. And either they want me and it's a match or they don't want me. So I put on like a shirt I wore every day and my favorite shawl. And I did the interview. And it was after that first one that I went and I listened with the trees. And I was like, okay. And I was going to sit with one of my teachers, our Conley that weekend, who is from Peru. But I was like hung up on the like CEO thing. So I was like, CEO, like that title, it's very colonial, patriarchal, capitalistic. Like, I don't like the title. I don't know if I can do this. And I'd never, keep in mind, the only 9 to 5 job I'd ever had before was at this indigenous nonprofit organization of 10 people that I worked with, 20 years ago. I had not had another like full-time job. So the whole idea of doing a resume, a cover letter, I was like, I have no idea how to do any of this. And all these people were like, just use ChatGPT. And I was like, I can't. Like, I think I really needs to come from me. So I was going to sit with my teacher, our con, and I can remember asking in the gathering, I was like, okay, I've been asked to apply for this job, but the title's CEO. I don't know if I can apply for a CEO job. And, what is the name for like, what do we call this? And he had no idea where the job was or what it was. And his response to me was, ask the orcas. So I'm still listening for the answer to that question, but I was like, okay, like clearly the orca are very close to Cortes, so there's something there. And when I was doing my cover letter, there was this song that I had learned in June of that year. Um, and it was at this song gathering, this woman named Amy Ringle, and she sang it and it caught like it was like the mantra that I needed to be carrying for that time. And maybe I'll sing it just so you can be with me in it. Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead. Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead. So that was the prayer that I was carrying, that I'd been carrying since before I heard about the job. And to me, it still speaks really clearly to how I'm holding the role at Hollyhock, which is that, like I wanted to be in service to those who needed my gifts and my talents, but also to find the people who need me or who I need, who can support me. And I've had so many beautiful experiences already of feeling so supported by the land and the community at Hollyhock. Um, but so I was going to put this song at the top of my cover letter, and everybody, my dad was like, you can't do that. They're going to think you're crazy. And I was like, well, either they want me like this or they don't, And so I started my cover letter with this song and talking about my ancestors. And um, as you know, the process continued. And so clearly it was something was still clicking. Um, and so, like Kim said, when they offered me, or they told me that I was the top candidate, I had never been there. And so I realized, I said, before I can say yes to this, I need to come and put my body on the land at Hollyhock. And so we planned a whole trip with my family last January. We came up, my husband and my 17-year-old and our 6-year-old, and we visited for the weekend. It was January. And I will tell you that it was like the land was on its best behavior. Every ferry functioned like this. The water was flat, the sun was shining, there were eagles everywhere. It was warm. It was like gorgeous sunrise every morning. Like it was, yeah, it felt like it really felt like we were being welcomed by Cortes and by the land. And I can just remember the feeling like being on that, because initially the job description said that you could be anywhere in BC. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll get friends in Salt Spring. Maybe I'll live in Salt Spring. Like that's a fun place to be. And, through the process, eventually they said, no, we're actually looking for someone to live on Cortes. And I was like, oh gosh, like really? Am I going to move to an island of 1,000 people? And, like from the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that trip we first went to Vancouver, then we went to Salt Spring, we went to Vancouver Island. And the whole time I was like, would I live here? Would I live here? And as we approached Cortes, I could just feel this feeling of the settling of the nervous system as I approached Cortes and this wildness of the land and the beauty of the land. And I was clear before I even got to Cortes. I was like, no, no, if I take this job, I am to live there. Like I want nothing else. Like it makes no sense to take the job if I'm not going to actually live on Cortes. And so um, as the ferry was going into the Whaletown Harbor for the first time, I had this rush of emotion wash over my body, and I felt again this like whoosh of I don't know if you've ever had this feeling. It's like it was almost like grief mixed with love, mixed with like a feeling of an ache of like this isn't going to be easy, but I am in deep devotion to this. It was like deep reverence. It was the same feeling as being pushed in front of the trees onto like with my head in the soil in a way that was like I am willing to place my life in service to this. Um, and if you know anything about what's happened for my family over the past year, you'll know that it has not been an easy journey for us. And so I feel like I knew that in that first visit, and without knowing any of the details. And I'll just tell one more story, and then I know this is getting long, so I'll finish the story portion, but there are many, many, many more synchronicities. So on that note, that first weekend on Cortes, so from the time that Kim and I were at Ghost River Rediscovery, one of our teachers there, Mike Lickers, I remember trying to learn some of the songs that were part of that community, and he gave me an important teaching. He said, you don't try to learn songs. He said, what you do is you trust that you hear the songs, but then the song that wants to be sung will come through you when it's time. Like the song will just arrive. You don't practice, you don't plan. This is the song. And so I had always carried that teaching. And I was on Cortes, and I can remember staying in the Bluff House, and this song just kept bothering me. Like it was just coming and coming, and I didn't know why. I knew I'd maybe heard it before, but I didn't remember where I had heard it. And it was this song that it went, we are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we'll get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will maybe muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. So this song was just like coming, and I was like, okay, like, and so one of the things that we were dealing with in my family was that just as I was offered the job, my husband Christopher got this news that he might have cancer. And so we were on Cortes and then literally going back for him to have a PET scan to see what was going on. And those things were happening simultaneously. So when I heard the song, I was like, yeah, it's like, this is for me. The song is for me. The road's going to be muddy and rough, but I was like, it feels right. Like somehow, even with his potential cancer diagnosis, I knew it felt right. And I checked it with Christopher, and he was like, yeah, it still feels right. Even if he has cancer, it feels right. And so I was just like, the road will be muddy and rough. We'll get there. So, but the song kept singing me. And to the point that the night before I took the job, I said yes. I was starting March 3rd, which just to note, I did get I wanted a minimum 6-month sabbatical. And I started September 1st and I started at Hollyhock March 3rd. So I got my 6 months. I was able to do a lot of healing work. I feel 1,000 times better. So all of that happened. Um, but the night before I started, I was like, that song, it's like in my head. And I didn't know where it came from. So I just looked up the lyrics online and I was like, oh, it's this beautiful Ghanaian group, Osibisa. And like I listened to it on YouTube because I was like, what are the lyrics really? Because I'm singing it, but I don't know the right words. And I wrote it down. You can look in my journal, March 2nd, the night before I was starting, I wrote down the lyrics. And I was like, okay, this is like, the song. Um, Fast forward a month later, our leadership team was preparing for our staff retreat. And they're like, oh, you sing. That's so great. Like you could bring songs to the leadership retreat. And I was like, sure, great. And they said, oh, but you have to learn the Hollyhock song. And I was like, the Hollyhock song? What's the Hollyhock song? And they're like, oh, it's this song. It goes, we are going, heaven knows where we are going. So any of you who are on this call who are, long-term community members know this, but I was like, okay, yeah. So that's just one of like, there are many, many other actually like wild and magical song lines that carry me here. But I think that's good enough for my story part, and we'll just pause there and I'll pass it back to you, Kimmy. Thanks for listening.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So going forward, it's like it's kind of an exciting time. Uncertainty is a guarantee. Paradox is also a guarantee. And here we are. And you know, and living out our vision, I think it's really important. I mean, that's what Hollyhock is for, right? Is for people to come together and have the big holy shifts, on the land with whatever the programming that happens. And 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 but in the back scene of it, of all the curation that happens to make it happen, is kind of exciting. But going forward, I think it's important. We just talked about sort of the history of Katia, and most people know Hollyhock because we're all invested in different ways. But I think about going forward. Is there anything that has come up for you uh, that uh, that has stuck with you that Katia said, or something that you want to share from your breakout, um, on where we're going? We're gonna, I think, reconvene in January to talk about the vision, more about that uh, at a deeper level. But if anybody would like to share something that's up for you.
I think if you don't mind, this
Sorry.
is Stephanie, just the one notion of the word calling. What's come up for me is sometimes when I embrace that word, it's about sharing in this group. And I want to thank you all. It's prompted me to understand it's receiving.
Hmm.
And I think it's just a slight shift for me that I wanted to call out of what that word we've embraced today, calling. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I love that so much, Stephanie. I'll just share very briefly that this is like the number one lesson that I keep hearing from the land at Hollyhock and like is my personal work is to let go and be held. It's like we have so got you, the land has you, like and so this all my stories that like I have to do it, are being deeply challenged. And yeah, it's like my biggest work in the moment. So I love that. Just like with the calling needs to come the receiving. So that's beautiful.
Mhm. It's funny. Last week I was in ceremonies here where I'm living, and Katia had texted me, have good luck, and then she texted me, did any messages come through? And it was about being held for this night, and I think not just for this night, but for what the work that we're doing together is about, really competently being held. And I think that's hard for some people to allow that, in the receiving part. So Stephanie, yes. but I just think it's a really important piece that, we are all held well in all that's happening for each of us and collectively, and moving beyond all the silliness into being held well.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have a reflection or a question maybe for Katia? She had a lot to share. And I just wanted to name this because I always think about this. I just too, because it's like Katia's the magic that Katia holds. Equally, she also holds the capabilities of the intellect and the ability to sort of create a the the reality on the ground, because sometimes I think I was like, oh, I wonder if people are thinking it's all just magic and we've just hired a magic person. But yes, and also somebody who's very practical. Donna Lee.
Yeah, actually, Tom here. And that does speak to something I was going to comment on, which is from meeting Katya, I do get a sense of that practical, being able to do the stuff that needs to be done. But what I really, really like is hearing your story, Katya, and the unknownness of how you managed to get here and how that feels right for not just Hollyhock, but kind of the whole goddamn world these days. It's so unknown. And for something like this to be a nice seed where that can take place and leadership or whatever it is you want to call it can kind of come from that is very inspiring. And it weaves nicely into
Mm.
I find myself in life and the world these days. So thanks for being able to sit in the unknown with us and for us.
Yeah. As I was preparing for the talk today, I was sitting on the land and really hearing that, Tom, of it's like we don't know. We don't know. There's so much that's unknown in our lifetimes. We have no idea what will be happening in the world in 20 years, never mind 100 years, And so that feeling of really just showing up for whatever, it's taking the steps every single day in that really concrete way, but at the same time being in service to something that's so much bigger than we can possibly know what is coming. How do we show up with open
And
hearts and faithfulness and devotion, even as we don't know?
I'm like, note to self as you say that. Yes. Um, Laurel said, as a member of the staff, your practical skills are felt. Her insights around our registration system are leaving us with solid cash flow going through the winter flow season. Amazing. That's exciting. That's exciting. That's a real thing.
Yes. I got there and I was like, why is our payment structure like this? And yeah, we're having our best launch ever, which is amazing.
Yeah, hi, Katia. And this isn't a flippant question. I'm really curious to hear about the evolution of how you're living the title CEO. And if there's any plans to change it or intention or, and it's really an invitation to the kind of evolution of hitting the ground in a sense.
Yeah. I'm still listening. So I came into Hollyhock with, and largely from my various Indigenous, teachers and spending time in Indigenous communities, I really have learned that the way to enter someplace as much as you can is to be quiet and to listen and to observe. And so that was really my intention this first season at Hollyhock, was just to be and listen as much as possible. And welcome, Vanessa. And it was, I'll just say it was a very bumpy summer for me too. So my husband does have cancer. My son and I got into a near fatal car accident on our drive up to Hollyhock, literally as we were moving to Canada, as we were about to cross the border, passing Seattle. My mentor, James, who I taught a leadership pilot with for the staff in June, had a brain aneurysm the day after we landed and then died 2 weeks later. My son has been going through a lot of challenges, my 17-year-old. And so the spaciousness I long for to just be on the land and listen hasn't been there. And I feel like the orca might take a little while to get to know me. They're pretty wise and ancient. So just like I'm going to have to earn the Cortes community trust, I'm probably going to have to earn the orca orchid trust. And so it's like the messages haven't come, and I also haven't had like deep experiences of connection with the orca yet there. So, but I feel committed to creating new pathways for how we are being organizationally and what our structures are. And I'm listening, not just for my title, but just how are we organizing ourselves as a community and stuff in general.
Thank you. Yeah. The orcas are loyal and what's the word? They take a little while, like you said. They're not skeptical, but they're protective.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. And it's like I'm coming into this with, it's like this is from my perspective, that's taking this job, moving to Cortes, like this is the fulfillment of everything I've been dreaming of for 25 years. So like I have no plans beyond this. So if it takes 5 years for them to talk to me, like cool. Like, I'm at a point in life where I have like the knowing that things take time, and that's okay.
Hi, Katia. Could I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Were you out at Hollyhock this summer for David Abram?
I was around. I didn't get to participate in the course, but I did meet him. Yeah.
We might have crossed paths then. So, one thing that I really liked is that I came to Hollyhock a few years ago, about 3 years ago, for a retreat, and you said a couple things, and the blanket's starting to weave a little bit. And I look forward to meeting you when I come out again. And I was standing on the deck one time, and Kim walked up behind me, and she said, "You walk like my brother." Or she said something like that. And I was like, I was in a retreat with a guy, and so I didn't, we didn't talk, but it called me back, and it, something changed this summer when I was there. I came back, and in part of my, connecting with the land here, I started singing, and the song, what you said is that song comes. And 2 days ago, I was out getting, I go to the spring to get my water, and as I was going, I started singing a song that I didn't, realize was part of me to get this water. So it was really beautiful, and yeah, so we'll cross paths one day, but yeah, thank you for sharing. It was inspiring. So yeah, thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like song is one of the ways that both like, it's like my access point to connect with spirit, but it also is, I feel like it's one of the ways that as humans we can offer back to the land. Because I'm always like, what kind of offerings are actually valuable for the land? But I really feel like the land, the waters, the trees love it when we sing to them. So, yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I think we should end with a song. Do you have one?
I'm curious who has it. Yeah, what is the song?
Vanessa, do you have a song? You don't have to have a song. Or anybody?
I can teach the one that I sang earlier, unless Vanessa wants to. Vanessa, you want to hop in? No. I think you sang this one this summer at SVI too. So it's pretty easy. So you can learn it and we can sing along. And then, yeah, I just want to say, like, you are, I really feel a strong connection in my coming into Hollyhock, like I said, it's like there's this connection with the roots of Hollyhock and this deep resonance I feel with the original founders and the sharegivers and that vision that's been held for decades. And at the same time, I feel really excited for where we're growing and who we're becoming. And, the very, very brief version is that I envision Hollyhock really becoming a living leadership practice center, like a place where the whole, like all the staff and the employees and the community and in connection with Cortes, like we are living and practicing the ways of being and the regenerative principles that are most needed to be in right relationship at this time on the planet. So I have a whole vision and map for what I'm, dreaming into there. And also I'm still listening, but I'm happy to have another call to share more about that at another moment, maybe in January. And I just really warmly invite everyone to like keep keep coming and keep being with me, and I need you. Like I need your wisdom and your experience and it's like that song, like, oh Spirit, guide me, like guide me to those I need comes first, and then guide me to those who need me. So it's like, may we all have that reciprocal connection. And I have that prayer for Hollyhock too, that the people that Hollyhock needs to continue thriving and surviving and flourishing, that they find Hollyhock, and the people that need Hollyhock, come. And so, oh gosh. All right. Sorry. I'm changing songs because I think that's the song. It's the Spirit song. So I'm just going to sing it. And you can sing along. If you're on mute, then you can sing to your heart's content and no one will even hear you. But I invite you, this is a season of reflection and year-end harvesting and also gifting. And so it's like, as you sing this song, like, what are you inviting in? What do you need? What's coming to you? And also, who needs you at this time? Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead. Okay, try it with me. Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead. Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead. One more time. Oh, Spirit, guide me to those I need. Guide me to those who need me. I follow where you lead.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming to witness and beautiful journeys over the holidays for everybody and whatever that looks like for you. And I hope to see everybody in January so we can see what's going to be happening. Very exciting. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.